Hello everyone, welcome back to round 2 of the tournament. This is my video of my battle against Dbeezt. Before we begin, I should just preface this by saying the battles were fought in patch 11. It's now patch 12, and as a result, the replays are a bit desynced. But I know for a fact that, although mine is slightly different, the outcome remains the same. So anyway, we're going to jump right in here. I, of course, am playing as Baktria. Dbeezt is playing as Rome. Because I'm very unimaginative, I stuck with Baktria, and I took the gamble that perhaps Dbeezt would build an army to counter my Bactrian army. But on the other hand, it's an army I'm very comfortable and successful with, so, you know, I took the gamble because I'm a big dumb idiot. But anyway, now for the armies, it's basically a carbon copy of my army from the last battle, not gonna lie. 2 noble horse, 2 cataphracts, 2 Scythian horse archers, 6 peltasts, 3 pikemen, and 1 swordsman. Dbeezt, on the other hand, he has 1 elephant auxiliary, 1 praetorian cavalry, 4 Syrian auxiliary archers, and he has a total of about 8 infantry, mixed sword infantry, as well as 3 triarii. And here is our deployment. On the extreme right flank, I've got my 2 units of cataphracts supported by 2 peltasts. In the middle here, I've got my pikemen backed by 4 peltasts and my Thoric swordsman. I've got my elephants on the left along with my Scythian archers, and then on the extreme left, I've got my Bactrian noble horse. Now, unfortunately, at this point, we can't see much of Dbeezt's army because it is hidden within the trees. This is a very good map for ambushing. There's a lot of wide open spaces, just absolutely surrounded by brush and forests, which, as aforementioned, is really good for ambushes, and that's what I'm attempting to do here. My first order of business is to send my Scythians to either flank, just so I can get a good idea if there's any ambushing forces in those trees, because the deployment zone actually extends to either tree line, I believe. So I send my Scythians to scout and or bait those units into my cavalry either flank. On the right flank, of course, it's my cataphracts and my peltasts who are moving around here just to catch those units if they choose to follow my horse archers. And here we go, we've sighted one of Dbeezt's units. It's his Praetorian cav, and my Scythians loose off a single volley before they promptly turn tail and run because they're the biggest wusses in the history of mankind. And on the right flank, a similar thing happens, except it's his general this time. We've actually spotted the 2 units that Dbeezt has, his 2 cavalry units, and now I can try to bait them, but I don't believe Dbeezt is biting. No, he's moving his cav back to his main infantry body, which is good on him. That was a good idea, because for the most part, they would have been wiped off the face of the planet by my cavalry forces, heavily outmatched there. They have a slightly better chance in the main infantry force, which we now have a good sight of. He's got his sword infantry. He's got his sword infantry in the back, and his archers are now moving to counter my Scythians. I think they're trying to get a few volleys off, but their arrows fall a little short, and they don't kill a single Scythian. Now, he's got his triarii in the front as well, trying to just counter those flanking maneuvers I have going on. At this point, I'm definitely concentrating on my cavalry, as my infantry has yet to move. I really need to position my cavalry before I begin moving and, well, engaging with my infantry, I suppose. The start of this battle is just chock full of posturing. I'm just doing a lot of flanking maneuvers, whilst Dbeezt moves his armies to, you know, counter those moves. I've really only got my infantry in the line of sight. Well, I want my infantry to be in the line of sight at all times. They are the constant threat, whilst I move the hidden true power of my army along the flanks, which is my cavalry. A lot of the power in my army is in cavalry and mobility, and I just want him to be frozen in place, ready to meet my infantry, which, like I said, is not really the true threat. As we can see here, my Scythians are now around the back. I've noticed that he has his African elephants unsupported, so I've got my Scythians lined up ready to loose a few arrows at these bastards. trying to get them to freak the fuck out. I think I should be using fire arrows any minute now. Well, at least I should be. If I was smart, that's what I would be doing. And I think any second now. There we go. There go the fire arrows. On the right flank, I think at some point I realized that my cataphracts don't need support, and I move my peltasts up to meet my infantry line, but it hasn't happened yet. That's just fine. My noble horse are still waiting back on the flanks here. They haven't really moved much. It's really, I'm just playing with my Scythians here. I'm microing the fuck out of my Scythians. I want to get Dbeezt to move his units as much as possible to get him into disarray, and that's what's happening. He's got his sword infantry just taking a few arrows while he moves his archers around. There's not much semblance of a line to his army here. It's very nice. Oh shit. Those elephants just flatten those triarii, and somehow not a single one of them has died. They're all just fine and dandy. Look at that. It was just a simultaneous nap going on there. Not a big deal. It's quite the tactic for the Romans. They just, between battles, they have a big fucking nap. Okay, there we go. I'm finally moving my peltasts up, like I said, and I've moved the remainder of my army as well. I've got my infantry, like I said before, always in line of sight. I don't want to hide my infantry. I want to make the enemy think that the real threat is in my infantry. When really I'm corralling Dbeezt in with my cavalry forces, and there we go. My cataphracts are still moving, but I am trying to move my Scythians around the other flank because Dbeezt has done the exact same thing. He has left his elephants slightly unsupported. I mean, they are close to these Syrians, but not nearly close enough to prevent my Scythians from taking some more pot shots. At this point, I move my noble horse, and in response, Dbeezt moves his African elephants up, most likely to counter and charge those noble horse, but it hasn't happened yet. I think at some point my plan here was to move the cataphracts around the entirety of this forest here, remaining hidden the entire time, but for heavy units like cataphracts, I can't really do that much running. So I'm pretty much forced to cross the open ground, just to sprint to cover, in the hopes that Dbeezt won't see those units. Now on the left flank, my Baktria noble horse are kind of just getting ready to bait these elephants out, because I've got my Scythians on the way to fire some shots here. So here I start to move my Baktria noble horse into line of sight. I want Dbeezt to see those horse units and to charge them with his elephants so I can get some shots off with my Scythians. And he takes the bait any minute now. It looks like he's moving towards the center of the formation, but no. He turns around, he begins to charge those Baktria noble horse, and I issue a charge command in response, and I back off. I don't want to get charged by fucking elephants. That's a terrible idea, but it's too late. I've got my Scythians well in range to loose some arrows before those elephants return to the formation. So there's a few fire arrows. I get a few more off. And before Dbeezt counters with his Praetorians, they charge towards my Scythians, and basically at this point I'm thinking I'm fucked, because those Praetorians would absolutely rip through my Scythians, but at the last minute, they stop charging. There they go. Dbeezt has issued a command to stop that charge, which is very lucky on my part. As I said, those Praetorians would absolutely wreck my Scythians. Now, my main infantry body is moving up ever onward. My pikes are down now. I'm presenting that threat, whilst my Hellenic cataphracts are now crossing that open ground. My Bactrian noble horse are repositioning for some flanking moves, and now I've got my Scythians just trying to get those elephants to go berserk in the middle of the Roman formation, because that would be amazing. So here we go. They begin firing on these elephants any minute now. No. Okay, there we go. Finally, they're firing, and now Dbeezt has moved his Syrian archers forward to the front of his line, but unfortunately my peltasts and my pikemen are absolutely beasts, and they have high armor, which prevents literally any deaths from happening from those arrows. But Unfortunately for Dbeezt, my Peltasts are very good at taking out these heavily armored archers, and they do that very quickly. Now, on the right flank, Dbeezt has placed his general out of position, and I'm in quite the position to throw some javelins and also get a nice charge off with my cataphracts. So I do that. On the left flank, however, Dbeezt is moving his infantry forces forward. I have to move my pikes to meet him, but they quickly outflank my units. Now, in the real battle, I was never actually able to get these elephants to go berserk, but in the replay, due to the desync, here they go. They're going fucking nuts inside these units of legionaries, which is just fantastic. Meanwhile, on the right flank, my cataphracts are completing that charge. We're getting some javelins and some Hellenic cataphract charges, and it basically absolutely melts his general unit. I think his general died at this point. Just in one charge, I took out his general, and I've got free reign over the rear of his army now. I've got 1 unit, 2 units of Hellenic cataphracts, 2 units of Baktria noble horse, and unfortunately for me, I've got this problem on my left flank. You see, he's run around my pikes, and he gets a good charge off here. Phew, they throw some javelins, they kill some pikemen, but I catch it just in time, and I issue a move order to those pikes, and I reform the line there, which saved my ass for the most part. Now I've charged into the rear of these units with my cataphracts, and I've caused a few casualties, especially considering those Peltasts are throwing into the rears of those units. On the left, his elephants are going nuts. In real life, the elephants charge all the way up here, and these Baktria noble horse were actually attacking those elephants, and I issued an order for my cataphracts to charge those elephants up here, but they're down here, so my cataphracts charge into this giant fray. Now, at this point, I am charging the rear of his infantry on the left with my thorax swordsmen as well as my armored elephants. I wanted to keep those armored elephants away from the fray as long as possible. I want to use them in a decisive move. I really don't want my elephants to go amok. So, I've now engaged on the left flank and I've shattered those units. Up here I sent my Scythians to tangle with those Syrians. The Scythians have, you know, basically done all they can do at this point, so they go to tie up those Syrians. These units are following a noble horse, which I don't think ever actually broke, so that's not a real move by Dbeezt. That would be silly, but anyway, at this point Dbeezd's army is basically annihilated. I've got all of my cavalry units, the majority of my Peltasts, and he has lost his most expensive unit, his elephants. They're basically ready to rout. All his heavy infantry is routing or about to. The only thing he has left is a Praetorian cavalry and an Eagle cohort, and, well, this Triarii unit over here as well, but they are basically tangling with these 2 Peltasts who still have javelins, so they're about to annihilate them. And at this point, Dbeezd's army just, this is when it begins to unfold. Now, as you see down here, there's actually 2 minutes left in the battle. There was 2 minutes left in the actual battle, but due to the desync, it is ending prematurely. But the result remains the same. I have a decisive victory, and yes, good fight, Dbeezt. I'm glad you didn't take the bait for those Scythians. Unlike the majority of people, they chase the Scythians and they fall right into the trap, but you prevented that, sir. Well done. So I lost 300 men here. Dbeezt lost 1,200. I only killed 1,000 of those, so approximately 200 of his Romans were trampled by those elephants in the replay. But like I said, the desync has caused those elephants to run amok, when in reality I never did get them to run amok. I just brought them down with javelins before my pike line, and that was the end of the battle, basically. But anyway, thanks for watching, everyone. I will be releasing another video very shortly. I'll see you next time.